welcome you all to this session of the QM East Regional Conference titled A Comprehensive Framework for Assignment Design. Please join me in welcoming your presenter, who's going to introduce himself and begin the presentation.
Thank you. Can you stop sharing your screen so that I can, yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right. Let's see. Desktop. Okay. My name is Zakaria Jouaibi, and I am a senior instructional designer at North Carolina Central University. I have also been teaching 2 online graduate courses, one in ESL teaching methodologies, and the other one has to do with cultural responsive teaching. So my goal today is to get you thinking about how we design our assignments and by extension our projects, whether they are online or on-site. I would like to suggest a paradigm shift in how we perceive assessment and its function in the learning process. So I will be introducing a comprehensive framework to assignment design and share with you some helpful resources. I also wanted to tell you that I have included some interactive activities, and your participation will be deeply appreciated. So if you don't mind, I did write something on the chat box saying, please go to nearpod.com and please, can you just log in the code that I provided in there so that you can join me, or you can see the code right here. So what does would allow us to do is you can have access to the slides, you can follow with me, and you can also participate in some interactive activities that I have included in here. Do you guys see the screen well? Like, is there any problem? No? Good?
Looks good.
Okay, perfect.
Looks good to me, thanks.
Okay, perfect. All right, so by the end of this session, we should be able to examine the principles of comprehensive framework to assignment design, define the concept of transparency in learning and teaching, list some benefits of implementing this kind of framework, and I will be also sharing and analyzing a comprehensive instruction sheet template that I'm gonna share with you as well. So, okay. All right, so see. Okay, so what I wanted to do is, were you able to look at, the assessment example provided in there? I assume you do. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so what do you think about that kind of assignment? Do you think that this assignment is clear enough? Will the students have a better grasp of what is expected of them? Besides the technical requirements provided in that assignment, do you think it is a high quality assignment? Would it lead to, like a better learning outcome or not? I see that people here saying no answer. Like, were you able to type your answers? Can you say that in the chat room? Okay. So let's just do it in the Google way. Yeah, for some reason I couldn't see it. Okay. So yeah, so what I'm trying to say here is that we need to look at our assessment from a learning perspective. So for example, this example provided here, where, there is like this kind of scribble on a whiteboard, providing this kind of technical description of what the students need to do. it's not very helpful at all, because it does not provide any kind of expectations or requirements about the content. It does not provide any kind of explanation explaining how this paper is connected to the course objectives. So what I'm suggesting today is a framework that consists of 4 main principles: alignment, transparency, scaffolding, and authenticity. As we already know, alignment means that our essential course component complement each other to support and pave the way to your students to achieve the intended learning objectives. In other words, your assessment should align with not only with your course and module objectives, but also your instructional materials, learning activities, and instructional technologies. It is the instructional materials that will equip your students with the necessary knowledge and skills to complete the assignment. It is our learning activities that provide our students with the opportunity to learn and practice that knowledge and skills. And it is the instructional technologies that help students acquire and practice. In other words, the quality and the effectiveness of your assignments or projects starts with aligning all your course components. And if they are well aligned, they will prepare and help our students to successfully complete our assignments and projects, and therefore achieve the intended learning objective. So let's do this like quick interactive thing where I'm just gonna ask the question of, I'm not sure if you guys can see it here. For some reason, I'm having problem with technology regarding that. Anyway, let's forget about the interactions for now. So the next principle that I would like to talk about is the transparency in teaching. And what does refer to is using methods and strategies that explicitly explain to the students why they are learning course content and how they will be able to learn it. This concept was coined by Winkelmus in her attempt, where she actually created this kind of initiative or project which aims at improving teaching and learning experiences. The concept is about 3 main components, as you can see. She suggested that to achieve instructional transparency, we need to make sure that our instruction consists of 3 main components. Purpose, which is about explaining to our students the skills and the knowledge that will be gained from completing a given task and how it relates to the learning objectives as well as the real world. Task, which is about telling your students what needs to be done and how to do it. And finally, criteria refers to success criteria listed in rubrics and examples. So how should transparency principle manifest in our assignment instruction? First, we need to make sure to include the learning objectives being assessed in a given assignment or project. By doing so, we are establishing or clarifying the relationship between the assignment and the relevant course or module objectives. Second, we might need to define the purpose of completing this assignment by explaining why the students have to complete this assignment and how it relates to their lives and the real world. Third, we might want to make sure that we explicitly articulate the tasks that need to be performed, as well as the steps that need to be followed to successfully complete the assignment. And fourth, we need to plainly describe success criteria that will be used to evaluate students' works. We can do that by providing rubrics, checklists, and anything that can be used to explain how their assessment or how their projects would be assigned. And finally, we need to provide our instructional rationale for using this assignment or this project, or even this any kind of task or learning activity. Research has shown that when adult learners are provided with the reasoning behind completing an activity or assessment, they do not perceive it as a futile, busy work, and they tend to engage with that assignment or project in a more meaningful, deeper manner. So as you can see, there are two quality matter standards that tap into transparency principle. We have 3.3, which states that we need to provide specific and descriptive criteria used to evaluate students' work. And there is also standard 4.2, which says that we have to offer clear explanation of the relationship between the instructional materials and learning activities. Although this standards has to do with describing the relationship between the instructional materials and the learning activities, I do apply it in my assessment as well as by explaining or through explaining the connection between my assessment, the instructional materials, and learning activities. So there are a lot of kind of, standards in quality matters that I was able to actually transfer that best practice from just like, not just, the learning activities and explaining the relationship between that and the instructional materials, but I also explained the relationship between whatever relevant materials used for that assessment, as well as the previous learning activities, and how it relates to that assignment or project. By doing so, students tend to be more engaged and have a better understanding and reasoning why they need to do that. And I think it is really a good practice to explain the relationship of anything and everything that is learning related that you design and post on your online or on-site course. Okay, so next quiz, or like a self-check of understanding. I just want to see if you guys agree with this. Okay, let me see. You're gonna agree with this statement or not. And Nearpod today is not playing well with me today. Anyway, so let's just carry on, and then we'll have the interaction part at the end to answer all your questions. Okay, so let's talk about the scaffolding principle. Instructional scaffolding generally refers to the use of strategies that will support our learners in their learning experiences, to scaffold our assignments or projects and provide our learners with the support they need to successfully complete an assignment or a project. We need to make sure that we sequence our learning activities, tasks, quizzes in a way that build on each other over time and equip our learners with the knowledge and skills needed before they move on to more complex skills and tasks. By sequencing our activities or assignments, each activity and every assignment provides a scaffold for the next, and so on. Therefore, our learners tend to get prepared for, the biggest or the Goliath assignment or project, so to say. Another scaffolding practice is breaking down our assignments or project into manageable tasks that adapt to a whole, especially if it is a big multi-layered assignment or project. By sequencing our activities and tasks and breaking down our big projects or assignment into smaller tasks, what we're doing is we are providing our learners with valuable practice opportunities and a more meaningful interaction with the content instead of just like throwing the whole thing at them, which might be daunting and might cause some cognitive overload. So we also need to provide debriefing sessions to our students before, during, and after the completion of the assignment. I usually tend to have like 3 live sessions online, one at the very beginning and one in the mid-semester, and the last one at the end, just so that I can provide, the briefing and answer any kind of questions that would help my students successfully complete the assignments or the projects. We should also make sure that we are offering continuous timely feedback as they are working on their assignment or project. And finally, we might want to include all the resources that our learners will need to complete the assignment. We can provide examples, samples, tutorials, technologies, etc., so that we can help them achieve the intended learning objectives and do well in their assignments. So as you notice, I put some kind of quality matter standards up there that they seem to be either directly or indirectly tap into this scaffolding principle. So 3.4, which emphasizes the importance of sequencing and diversifying assessment, which is really important. We need to get our students prepared for that big assignment or that big project and be equipped with the knowledge and the skills necessarily to achieve that. 3.5, which highlights the importance of providing students with several opportunities to practice and get feedback. And you can do that by breaking down your assignments into smaller cumulative tasks. And you would be surprised how this would reduce your workload as an online instructor. Because like now, since I started doing that, I no longer have to think about what are my weekly assignments and then think about the final big projects. What I have done is just I would create this big cumulative project, and then I break it down into many projects that would be distributed weekly so that the students would have the opportunity to practice, get feedback on a timely manner. Because believe it or not, if you wait until the end and you provide feedback at the end of the semester, students don't take that into consideration and they wouldn't learn anything from it. So it was really a win-win situation for me and for my learners as well. 5.2, which states that learning activities should engage students in interactive and active learning. This happens when students are interacting with the manageable content, like a more digestible parcels, interacting with their faculty and getting feedback and debriefing sessions and interacting among each other, especially if some sort of peer review activities were a part of this kind of process. So we should look at that assignments or projects as a rich, meaningful, active learning, opportunity or experience. And then there is also like 6.2 that tap into scaffolding principle indirectly, which focuses on aligning the technology with the learning objectives. The right selection and implementation of technology play a scaffolding role by facilitating certain tasks or making the process more efficient, and students tend to be less overwhelmed and they can actually and easily perform certain tasks that I'm requiring them from that assignment or project. 6.2, which has to do with using technologies that enhance students' active engagement and interaction with the content, with each other, and with the instructor. So what does that tell us is an assignment or a project is a really great learning opportunity. If it is well designed, we can actually provide our students with a more meaningful and deeper learning experience. So I'm gonna check the chat and see if there are any questions so that I can answer them and stop just lecturing in here. Let me see.
And no questions have come into the Q&A yet.
Okay, perfect.
And it looks like not in the chat either. So I think so far, so good.
Okay. All right, so let's keep going then. All right, so the last principle of this framework is authenticity principle. So research has shown that when we use authentic assessment that consists of activities mimicking real-world tasks, learners' motivation and engagement increase. A good way to design authentic assessment is to make it problem-based, where students have to solve an issue and come up with a solution or product that has an inherent value. In other words, in an authentic assessment, students should play a role that is beyond being a learner. And that's why, some of the best way to engage students in authentic assessment is to implement what we call service learning, which tends to be very, very effective in terms of engaging students in this kind of learning opportunity. So with relevance to authenticity principle, the QM standards that indirectly link to it is 5.2, again, which states that learning activities should engage students in interactive and active learning using authentic problem-based assessments that are well-designed, promote learners' active engagement and interaction with the content, with the instructor, and among each other as well. So you're going to be asking, okay, so why should we use this kind of model or framework, right? So number one is several studies like the one conducted by Winkelmes and her colleagues showed that when we include transparent teaching and learning, student success seems to benefit, seems to be seems to be increased. In other words, transparent teaching promotes student success and helps students do well, especially the underserved students. The results showed that thanks to the implementation of transparent teaching and learning, students' sense of belonging, academic confidence, and students' motivation and retention rates increased at statistically significant levels. All these are indicators of academic success. Another indicator of success is whether the learner has a growth mindset or fixed mindset, as Dweck explained in her wonderful book, Mindset. Right now, you might be asking, well, how does mindset relate to this assignment design framework? Well, when you provide clear, comprehensive instruction and offer your students several practice opportunities, and they have the chance to get feedback from you and from their peers, they will be able to modify their work and earn a better grade eventually, right? In other words, what they are doing is they have learned that with trial and practice, they can get better and better instead of having a fixed mindset, believing that they are incapable of completing that assignment or project. According to Duckworth, in her book Grit, which is like one of my favorite books that I have been reading lately, students who have growth mindsets tend to have grit, or what Duckworth refers to as perseverance and resilience. So that is manifested in this kind of design framework when students are working on an authentic project or assignment that values not only the final product, but the process as well. When they are actively interacting with its content and their instructor, when they are collaborating with each other, when they are receiving feedback and scaffolding and are submitting and resubmitting their work, it means that they are trying and trying hard to meet your expectations and achieve excellence without being penalized. In other words, they are practicing and developing grit. As Duckworth said, in her book, perseverance and resilience are not innate, but learned qualities. So by applying this kind of model or framework to designing meaningful, assignments and projects, we are, helping our students to be successful learners. And finally, the practice of, and feedback opportunities that our students get through, incorporating them in our assignment, help them develop their metacognitive skills, thanks to that feedback, thanks to that practice opportunities that they get. And then they become self-regulated learners. So thanks to our feedback, they can monitor, their progress, they can identify their learning deficiencies, and come up with more effective strategies to approach the tasks that they have at hand. Therefore, all of these qualities that, a thoughtful, well-designed assignment provide will help our students to be successful, not only in in our courses or their academic journey, but also in their personal and professional lives. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say here is we might want to shift our perception of assignment or assessment in general from seeing it as a measurement tool to cherishing it as a powerful learning opportunity. And I'm going to share with you the assignment instruction sheet that is based on Winklem's transparent teaching and learning theory with you. Let me do that. Okay. Get right here. So here is an example, and this is available in the website, in QM website resources, and I'm going also to share with you the link in the chat form. So if you notice, the assignment instruction sheet consists of multiple segments, the learning objectives, and that's what when we talked about alignment. We also provide a description and the purpose of the assignment, and we try to, make sure that we are not answering all these questions. You don't have to cover all of them, but this is just like helps you and guide you to writing a more meaningful, comprehensive, and transparent instruction. And then there is a step-by-step directions. As I said, a scribble on a whiteboard, or a short description of an assignment in a syllabus might be enough for your face-to-face courses or face-to-face students, but not for your online students, because they don't have the luxury to stop by and ask questions and seek clarifications and all that. Also, you can't see the, okay, let me share it in the chat area. Okay.
We see your presentation, which
okay.
I know is one handout in the chat, in the conference.
Okay.
But I think you were maybe referring to the first handout on the template, transparent assignment sheet.
What about
yes.
now?
Now we see it on the screen. Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. So this is the transparent, instruction sheet that I was referring to, where there is the application of, the transparency principle that I was referring to. If you notice, there is a section where we put, the learning objectives that will be practiced or assessed, so that the students would have a better understanding of, what they are going to do, why they are doing it, and how it relates to achieving the course and module level objectives. We also, include a section here where we provide a description and the purpose of completing this assignment, and where we relate, this assignment or the tasks included in here to real life, tasks. So here, if you notice, there are, some questions that would help our faculty members, to write transparent, clear instruction. And then there is another section here. It's the step-by-step directions. So this is where, our faculty members provide, detailed instruction where they explicitly spell out their expectations and what they want to see happening in these students' projects. We all know that, many times we would receive papers or projects from our students, and we would be shocked how they don't really meet our expectations. And one of the reasons is not being able to explicitly explain what we want them to do. And then there is a section for assessment where we explain, what the the success criteria, the rubrics, the checklists, and the examples that will be used in order to assess students' work. And this has to do with the criteria part of Winklem's teaching, transparency, teaching, and learning. And finally, there is a section right here for materials and technology needed. So once you develop your assignments and things like that, you might want to provide that kind of section where you give your students all the material, all the resources and materials that you might need to be able to, perform the tasks effectively. I did make the link to this assignment instruction sheet available. It is also available in the QM the website as well, as well as the slides. So now I'm gonna stop talking and start answering any questions if there are any. Let's see.
None so far that I can see in the Q&A box, but I know we might have some coming in here at the end.
Okay.
So we
So,
can...
and that's it. So that's the, I call it as so that I can remember, comprehensive framework to design a meaningful assignment or project.
All right, thank you very much. I'm
No
going to go
problem.
ahead and stop our recording.